All right. Hello, my friends. We are getting into, we're on emotion regulation today. We have done an overview of all of the emotions. We went over the myths about emotions. We may get into a model for describing emotions today. We may come back to that. But mainly today, we're going to talk about check the facts. So we're on page 227 of our handy dandy notebook. All right. So checking the facts is it's kind of a typical CBT level of a skill. When Marcia was putting all this together, she talked about getting the best skills from all the different treatment models. So CBT, obviously, it's obvious, but is one of the standard kind of, everybody uses it in some form or another. Some people are experts in it. And it's a good treatment, but it's not enough for DBT. We want to use some of it, but it in and of itself is just probably not going to do it enough. So we want to check the facts when we're having an emotion, we've got a situation, there's some kind of argument, there's some kind of confusion, and so we bring our logical brain, right? This part, this is your brain, this is the logic part. We want to bring our logical part back online. And then we want to get deep into our logical part and think, does this make sense? What are the facts? What's the evidence for and against? So, checking the facts is on page 228. And then the homework for it, they spread the homework out in kind of an odd way, but check the facts on the homework, which is worksheet versus handout, is, here we go, page 285. Okay. So you kind of ask yourself these 6 questions. You get into a situation. Let's see if we can think of one. You're really worried because you're at work and you turn in a project late and now you're scared and your brain is telling you, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired. Oh, I'm scared. I'm anxious. I'm nervous. This is terrible. I'm going to get fired. And you sit and freak out. First of all, you start with, what is the emotion I want to change? Anxiety is fear. Nervousness is fear. Worry is fear. So I have fear in me. Is it valid? Is it justified? So checking the facts is, remember, an opposite action. We think, like, is this emotion justified? Is there danger for fear? And the way to tell, is there danger, is to go through and check the facts. Because if you're already scared, you're going to be like, yeah, there's danger for sure. But maybe not. So step 1, what is the emotion in the first place? It's fear. I'm believing that there's danger. Is that accurate or not? Step 2, what is the prompting event for my emotion? What's up? Why do I feel scared? Why am I nervous? And then you would backtrack and be like, okay, so I just sent this thing in and now I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. That's the prompting event. Then you think, what are my interpretations, thoughts, and assumptions about the event? So you write down on a piece of paper, I think my boss hates me. I think he's going to fire me. I think that everybody is going to know. And then you really like drill down deeper. And so you can say to yourself, okay, if that's true, then what? If so, then. If then. If he fires me, then I won't be able to pay my bills. If I can't pay my bills, if I can't pay my bills, then I'll get evicted. If I get evicted, then I'll be homeless. If I'm homeless, then I will die. In cognitive therapy, it almost always drills down to I will be unlovable or I will die. I'm not worthy, like these very strong cognitive distortions or beliefs about yourself in just a very kind of general sense of I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy, very doomsday. So this is step 4. Am I assuming a threat? The threat is that I'm going to get fired. The threat is that I'm going to die. The threat is that I'm going to be filthy and dirty and not have a shower and nobody is going to want to date me. And so you really push, like, what's the catastrophe? How deep is this going? What am I really thinking here? And you force yourself to label all those things. So we're writing all this down. What's the catastrophe? What's the threat? And then you think, does my emotion and or intensity fit the actual facts? So you put down all of your opinions and ideas and beliefs. And then you kind of make another column that says, like, okay, those are the facts, but are there facts that I'm also missing? So I've been here for 5 years. I've never seen anybody else get fired over one thing. I've never been written up before. They are really low on workers and they need all the help they can get. I immediately emailed my boss and told him that I was sorry that it came in late and I've already like apologized. Like those are the things that are also factual. So it is factual that it's late. It is factual that it's not supposed to be late. It is factual that your boss is cranky. It's also factual these other things, right? So that's the evidence for I will get fired and the evidence against. So that's what you're looking for is what's the evidence for this thing? What's the evidence against it? And then you also go into those core beliefs and those distortions of, okay, let's assume the catastrophe does happen. Let's assume this does happen. If I do get fired, is it true that I won't be able to pay my rent? Is it true that I won't get another job? Is it true that I will be homeless? And if it's like definitely true, then sure, write that down. But if I get fired, I know that there's, 12 other places that I pass on my way to work that are also hiring. I know that if I do get fired, my roommate can cover the rent for 2 months till I get a job. If I do get fired and I do get evicted, I know that I can go stay with my cousin for a month. Like those are also truths. And sometimes you won't find any evidence against. Sometimes, yeah, you are probably going to get fired and then you're going to be evicted and then you're going to be homeless. But even if you were to go down to that level of catastrophe, can homeless people become unhomeless? Are there programs? Are there shelters? Are there gyms? Are there things that even if worst case scenario happened, you'll usually be okay. You'll usually survive. You'll usually be able to get out of it. And so check the facts can sometimes feel invalidating because you're probably used to people being like, oh, that's stupid. Look at da 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 da. You're dumb for feeling that way. You're not dumb for feeling that way. It's totally valid that you're scared given you grew up without a lot of money and now you're terrified of poverty. Totally valid, not necessarily justified. The danger is excessive. And so in that other evidence against I'm going to get fired, normally when somebody makes their first mistake, they just get written up, so like that's a kind of balanced thing. I'm worried that I turned the project in late. My boss is angry. I probably won't get fired. I'll probably just be written up. That's a much more balanced, right? In DBT, everything's the teeter-totter. That's a more balanced, wise mind, acknowledging the emotions. It's totally legit to be worried here. And I'm probably not going to end up dead because of it. Finding that balance, the dialectic between, oh, everything's fine, I shouldn't be scared at all, it's no big deal at all. That's a little bit of a big deal versus this is doom and gloom and catastrophic. So pulling yourself into the middle. For some reason, she did not put in here the cognitive distortions, which I do find helpful. I don't know if those are like copywritten and like she wasn't allowed to use those. I've never asked, but they are helpful and they're not in here. So other things from cognitive behavioral therapy that go along with check the facts are, you just Google it, but it's a list of cognitive distortions. And it's things like black and white thinking, ignoring the positive, catastrophizing, having shoulds. Goodness, let me go look it up now. So printing the sheet off is very helpful to go along with this. So just print it off, or like there's a blank page on 284. You can just write them all down here. But just Google cognitive distortions. I think there's about 13 of them that are kind of typical. Magnification, so that's kind of blowing up one little piece of it. Like, yes, my boss did have a grumpy look, and I know that he had a flat tire this morning. Like, you're really blowing up this tiny little portion of it and ignoring all the rest. So magnification or minimization. You also just got a promotion. You also just had a evaluation and your boss said that you're doing amazing. You know, like you're ignoring these other things that are just as relevant to the situation. Y'all that are watching, I'm assuming that you can hear me or you would say something. Yeah, theoretically, looks like it. Overgeneralization. I always do this. I always screw up. I'm always such a loser. Nah, that's not factual. Maybe even most of the time you screw up, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do great. Jumping to conclusions and mind reading. So that would be like, oh, I know he's cranky because of me. I know that he thinks that I suck. I know that he wants me out of here. Unless he said those things, you don't know. Disqualifying the positive, magnification, catastrophizing, minimization, shoulds and musts, personalization. You know, again, like his cranky face is about me. This is about the thing I turned in. Like, this is something that I did. This is all about me. And again, it's valid that you think that stuff because probably when you're growing up, it was, you know, probably when you're growing up. So black and white thinking is a thing that people with borderline personality disorder do in general. And it's because if you're in a war zone, you have to be like good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. I don't have time to look at like the philosophy of it. I don't have time to write down a pros and cons or check the facts. I need to make instantaneous, this is a good category, this is a bad category, this is dangerous, this is safe, and just on the fly making choices like that. And that saved your life in a war zone or in the war zone that was your childhood or your adolescence or wherever it is that you came from with your invalidation. Children, no offense, but also children do this. So a little 2-year-old or a 4-year-old says that anything that you can sit on is a chair. That's a chair, this is a chair, that's a chair, whatever. If you sit on it, it's a chair. But in reality, that's a rocking chair, that's a recliner, that's a couch, that's a pillow, that's a futon. And they're all a little bit different. But little kids, like, they just don't have the vocabulary or the understanding or the experience to differentiate. Yeah, it's a chair, but more specifically, it's a futon. Yeah, it's a chair, but more specifically, it's a recliner. That takes more time, energy, and mental effort to say that's a futon instead of that's a chair. Time and effort, you don't have that to spare when somebody's gonna like beat you or yell at you or whatever. If you're dipping and dodging and ducking, it's a war zone and you don't have time to put that much into it. And so you get into this habit of just doing these broad categorizations, and you have decided that your boss is bad and your friend is good. And also, you so badly need people to be good. You want them to be good. You want them to be this idolized kind of character. And in your head, there's only two categories. And so you will ignore a lot of like, they're good, but they're flaky. But they lie. But you're doing drugs. But, so this is the idolization and devaluation that BPD can kind of get into sometimes. You've decided that I only have two categories, two boxes. This person is in the good box. And I'm going to ignore any other thing that would put them in the bad box because I need them to be good. And so you deal with some stuff and deal with stuff and deal with stuff and overlook it and ignore it and deny it and pretend like, oh, no, they're really good. And then one day you've had it up to here. You haven't said, hey, this is really frustrating and bothersome that you're always showing up to our lunch dates late. This is really bothersome and annoying that I'm always the one paying the bill. This is really bothersome and annoying that whatever the things are. And you just take it and take it and take it and take it until your magical number of I've had enough, or the day where you just can't take one more straw. The last straw drops, they come late for lunch, and you take them from the good box and put them into the bad box. And now they are the worst ever. You hate their guts. You highlight all the bad things they've ever done, which has always been there. But now that's all you're looking at. You're forgetting the fact that they also bring you casseroles when you're sick, that they also give you really sweet hugs, that they also have been around in your life for 10 years, ignoring all the good traits. And now it's only that they're late. It's only that they are flaky. It's only that they lie about stupid stuff. And that's the stuff that you're going to highlight because you only have two boxes. And so that is the splitting that people can talk about sometimes. Splitting is a weird term in with BPD because people use it a lot for a lot of different reasons. I don't think it's a super helpful term, but whatever. It can be used in a lot of different ways. So if somebody says that you're splitting or you talk about splitting or whatever, get the definition of what exactly they're talking about. So that can be really hard for the other person because they're like, today's a Tuesday for lunch. I always show up 15 minutes late. And now I'm this horrible, terrible person that you hate and you're blocking and you're trashing all over social media. It's shocking. It's like comes out of nowhere. In your head, it hasn't come out of nowhere. It has come from 10 years of this stuff. To them, never had any idea that any of this was wrong. And now it is blowing up into this huge debacle. So black and white thinking, like almost all the other ones, like it's a coping mechanism, it's a shortcut, it works. And there's probably a point where it becomes unhelpful and ineffective, and it's actually screwing your life up. This is also where we get into like favorite person kind of stuff. And so you want to do a check the facts on people, situations, yes, this person is beautiful and amazing and sweet, but let's also bring in nobody is all good or all bad. There is no all white and all black. There's really, really, really light gray and really, really, really dark gray. But everything is this very subtle gradation of color. And that is maturity. That is a definition of mental health, being able to balance in the middle and see both sides at the same time. It is both true that your friend loves you dearly and they're flaky and late. Those things happen concurrently. One doesn't erase the other. You can hold both truths at the same time. As a therapist, I'll have people just love me and singing my praises and telling me how amazing I am, and which is sweet. Obviously, I am amazing, but I take it with a grain of salt because I know too that at some point I'm going to disappoint you, I'm going to annoy you, I'm going to piss you off, I'm going to be too harsh, or I'm going to come in late, or I'm going to forget what you were talking And then you're going to be super mad at me and think that I'm the worst ever. I suck. I've never been good. You hate my guts. If you can just stick with it, eventually you will know that I am both very compassionate and kind of harsh. I am both very genuine, but also kind of flaky. These are truths about myself. And it's okay. You can have somebody that has these good and bad qualities. But that does take time and effort and just breaking out of that habit. And sometimes people will be more bad than good. And at that point, you should probably distance yourself. Sometimes people will be more good than bad, and then you should keep them in your lives. And you should always set boundaries on your own personal safety and your wellness and what you will and won't accept. But you should also give people the chance to know when they're screwing up. This is going back to anger, right? And you don't have enough anger in you. If that friend has been late for the past 10 years to lunch and it drives you crazy, say something. Give them a chance to correct their behavior. Show a little bit of frustration, show a little bit of anger. That situation is 10% anger instead of building it up, right, in the dam of unprocessed, unexpressed emotions until it all floods out. And now they're getting drowned by 10 years worth of anger that you've been holding on to unfairly. Like, it's just not fair. Sure, they shouldn't be late, but they don't know that it bothers you. And I mean, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. Some people, it really is like, meh, that's not that big of a deal. If it is to you, that's valid. You have to say something. Okay, back to cognitive distortions. Emotional reasoning. This is one that I fall into a lot. You're already scared, so everything looks dangerous. You're already angry, so everything ticks you off. You're already sad, so everything looks like doom and gloom. Whatever your emotional state is, that colors whatever you're looking at. So it's like wearing pink colored glasses or blue colored glasses or red colored glasses. The emotion filters your interpretation of neutral events. So if I'm already sad, my mail being damaged, my package being broken would just be like, oh, of course it is. I've lost something else. The world is dark. If I was already angry, I would be like, of course it is. How dare they? They're so irresponsible. If I just won the lottery, I would be like, screw it. I'll get another package, right? Depending on how your emotions are, you're going to interpret neutral situations based on those emotions. This is also very true if you're taking steroids, if you're PMSing, if you're sick. Think about, like, am I already coming from a place of blah, and therefore I'm interpreting blah differently. Labeling, this kind of, I mean, we're talking about a lot of kind of very philosophical truths in this chapter. Labeling is another cognitive distortion that will get you in trouble. And just like having the black and white thinking and the good and bad boxes that you divide everything in the world up into, not only do you have these two boxes, but you have a set of labels that are very judgmental. So the label of dumb, the label of ugly, the label of pretty, the label of amazing, the label of worthless that you put on yourself, like name tags, and you put on other people. It is a shortcut, just like the two good and bad boxes are. And it was probably done to you or around you when you were a kid. It was probably part of the invalidation. And this one can really sting, but you probably internalize that crappy critical voice from your youth, and now you're using it on yourself and you're using it for other people. So Lord knows we don't want to do the same things that our abusers or our difficult environments did to us, but it's a very natural thing. If you were told you're stupid growing up, you're probably going to be telling yourself you're stupid and be labeling other people as stupid. When you do that, it's a quick automatic, oh, stupid goes in the bad box. Oh, rich goes in the good box. Oh, beautiful goes in the good box. Oh, ugly goes in the bad box. It's fast and it's problematic because every judgment comes with it an emotional suitcase. If you're saying that that guy is stupid, you automatically have some disgust. You automatically have some, yeah, I mean, stupid is like a disgust kind of emotion. It's like a little bit of anger and a little bit of fear and a little bit of like, ugh, gross. You're bad. Get away from me. You're so dumb. Put it in the bad box. So if you think about labeling another driver that has cut you off in traffic as stupid, worthless, piece of crap, horrible person, that's a lot of emotion that has just come with that. Now you're angry and disgusted by them. And if you check the facts, like we just did, what's the evidence for that? He cut you off in traffic. So he did not follow the rules of the road. All people do that at some point or another. All people can't be stupid. I mean, I guess humanity can be stupid, but yourself included. But it just doesn't fit the facts. Yes, he cut you off in traffic. Yes, he didn't follow the rules. Maybe he's stupid. I mean, what is stupid? Like a low IQ? Like, what does that even mean? Can people with low IQs be good drivers? Of course. Can bad drivers be brilliant? Of course. It doesn't make sense, right? It's a very erroneous logical problem. So, a more accurate way to say that is he cut me off in traffic. He made a driving mistake. All people make driving mistakes sometimes. He might be stupid. He might be brilliant. He might have just made a mistake. He might make this mistake all the time. He cut me off in traffic. I wish that he would have given more space. That's a truth. So this goes to the shoulds and musts. He should have not pulled in front of me. He should have waited till there was more space. He should have driven better. He should have followed all the rules all the time. That's the shoulds and the must and these extreme overgeneralizations. There's such a cheesy saying that cheeseball CBT therapist, no offense, but it's cheesy. But it's memorable. You're shoulding all over yourself. Take should out of your vocabulary. It's not helpful. I should do this. He should do that. They all should do whatever. We should do this. This should have been different. I shouldn't have been hit. I shouldn't have had to deal with this. I should have gotten the raise. No, no, no. There are no rules to the universe. Like there's no like says who you should have. The more accurate thing is I wish. I wish he wouldn't have cut me off. I wish I would have gotten the promotion. I wish things would be predictable. I wish things would be fair all the time. I wish that. I wish that bad things didn't happen to good people, and I wish good things didn't happen to badly behaved people. And they do. It's not that it shouldn't happen or should happen. Again, that's another way to like categorize in different quick, easy, fast. That's a box, that's a label, that's a should and should not, should and should not. When in reality, it is so much more subtle. It's so much more intricate. There aren't hard and fast rules, you know. So this gets into radical acceptance, which we must have covered. I guess we covered in distress tolerance. But we all have to radically accept that, like, sometimes children die. We can say that shouldn't happen. It should. It should. And people like get real bent out of shape when I say that. But I'm saying that intentionally to kind of be incendiary because like wake up, like wake up to this. Children should die because children are not immune to death. They're not immortal. They're not made out of robotic protective whatever. It does make sense that that happens. People should cut you off in traffic because people make stupid driving mistakes every day of their life when they're driving. I do, you do, we all do. Nobody is perfect. So mistakes should happen. Driving situations should happen because the laws of averages and gravities and whatever. You say he shouldn't have cut you off, but yeah, he kind of should have because he's a human that makes mistakes and that is understandable. So it's totally valid and makes sense that you use these cognitive distortion shortcuts to label, decide, put everything into this and this and this category so you can deal with it quickly and survive. You can manage the warfare. You can figure out how not to get, you know, the wrath of your alcoholic father. Like you came by it naturally and it was very helpful and it's a good thing in a specific time in your life. It will end up making your life miserable. Because when you start saying he shouldn't have cut me off, now I'm mad, now I'm disgusted with humanity, and now I'm going to have a bad day the rest of the day. How is that helpful anymore? That's actually screwing up your life. Okay. So I would, if I were you, go through the cognitive distortions, pick out the ones that are your favorite, and catch yourself doing them. I would check the facts and write down the evidence for and against your emotions. And a lot of times your emotion will fit the facts. Like it does make sense to be irritated when somebody is driving riskily and cuts you off. Like that's your goal of driving safely is being blocked. A little bit of irritation and anger makes sense. And that anger and irritation, so that you're not just lost and like la di da, not paying attention to it at all, will have you get away from that driver and then it'll keep you safe. But rage, not helpful, not effective. You should reserve these really strong emotions for sprinkles, like 10 times throughout your life should you have rage in you, like wrathful, vengeful rage. And you should save it for when your kid is being kidnapped or somebody is breaking into your home or like, I don't even know, like very, very rare circumstances should you have rage or despair or terror, right? Or even like ecstasy, that should be when you get married, when you have a baby, when you win the lottery, when you buy your first house, like it should happen sprinkled throughout, not every third day. So the emotion may fit the facts, but the intensity of it doesn't. And so that's when you go back and do the opposite action so you can decrease the intensity. Opposite action for road rage, stop, back up, empathize. Everybody makes mistakes. Maybe that's an old grandma, maybe that's a 14-year-old kid, maybe they have a lady giving birth in their back seats. Empathize. With fear, if you're really terrified that you're going to lose your job in that situation, approach I mean, that can be a hard one. So sometimes you got to approach not knowing and just sit with like the ignorance. And that is, glad you're here, dude. That is a really difficult thing. So sometimes with fear, it's hard to decide like, well, in that situation, like, what would you approach? You could talk to your boss and ask and figure out if you're going to get fired or not. Or you could just sit with, okay, I'm scared. I think this dangerous thing might happen. It's not likely to be dangerous. So I'm going to be willing to just sit with not knowing and not figuring it out. So worry is you trying to figure out the future, you trying to come up with all the scenarios, you trying to problem solve what will or will not happen eventually. And worry is actually avoiding not knowing. Worry in and of itself is a coping mechanism. It's a comforting technique, ironically. But when your brain is da 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 da, oh my God, what's going to happen? Da 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 da, this might happen, this might happen. Then what would I do here? And playing out every different scenario that might ever happen. That makes you feel better than just sitting with, I don't know. And no amount of thinking is going to figure it out for me. And no amount of thinking is going to problem solve it for me. If it's like, will my family get in a car wreck when they're on their way to something? We don't know. I don't know. It's possible. If I sit and worry about it, I will feel like I'm in a little bit of control. I will feel, not consciously, but subconsciously, it feels like, okay, if I imagine them wrecking, if I imagine them going to the hospital, if I imagine them being in the ER, and then where I would have to get somebody else's car, and then I would get the phone call, and this is what it would sound like, and then I would go, and then I would see them, and this is what they would look like, and then I would hold their hand, and then I would cry, and then like these morbid, awful fantasies is actually you comforting yourself with the possibility that you don't have control and you don't know, which is the truth. So sitting with like, oh, I have anxiety. I'm concerned that they all might be in a fiery car wreck. What is the evidence for and against that? Well, people do have fiery car wrecks. Evidence against it, they never have before. My husband's a good driver. They're not going on busy streets. There's whatever you could like Google the statistics for what are the odds you're going to get in a car wreck. But then am I catastrophizing anything? Okay, say they do get in a car wreck, are they going to die? Probably not, right? Most car wrecks aren't lethal. So then you go to there. Even if they did get in a car wreck, would the worst case scenario happen? Would they all die a fiery death? This is dark. This is morbid. I should have like put a spoiler warning. If they did, then what? If that, then what? And so me being terrified and having panic attacks because they've all left and here I am and what something could happen, terror doesn't really fit. Mild concern, that makes sense. And so opposite action for that would be to just sit with it and breathe through the anxiety and not play out these morbid doomsday fantasies to comfort yourself. And again, I know that that is a bizarre thing to think that worry is a coping comfort technique, but it is. Sit with ignorance, sit with not knowing, sit with not being in control. Notice the way it feels in your body and just focus on the feeling and breathe through it. Check the facts, bring your logic back online. And then over a long-term process, have them leave over and over again. And then you have more and more evidence of they haven't died 1,000 times before. This is a very unlikely scenario. They've been okay every other time they've come back. And then your intensity and duration of terror will decrease. Okay. Check the facts. It also goes with pros and cons. I don't remember if we've gone over much of a pros and cons. Surely we did at some point. Let me see what else is in the actual page. ABC sheets are also really good from cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, she didn't add it in there. I don't know why, but you literally, so Google an ABC sheet. And then it's just a nice way to organize these thoughts. A is activating events. So it's the same thing as like this list of how to check the facts, but it's just put in more of a visual graphic kind of way. So A is activating events, and that is from number 2. What is the event prompting my emotion? So the activating event would be somebody cut me off in traffic. I turned my project in late. My family drove away to go on a trip and I'm not with them. That's the activating event. B is my beliefs. I think I'm going to get fired. I think this person is stupid. I think my family is all going to burn in a car wreck. Then C is the, oh Lord, what does this stand for? Activating event, belief, and sure emotions, but they, I can't remember it. Consequences. The consequences are your emotions or your behaviors. So activating event, what happened, beliefs, what your interpretations are, and then the consequences, how did that make you feel? How did that make you behave? And so I feel, so when I turn my project in, I think I'm going to get fired. I feel terror. My family leaves. I think they're going to have a wreck. I feel terror. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I think they're stupid. I feel anger and disgust. Interestingly, here too, based on your variations in beliefs and all of our beliefs in any of the situations, all of us are going to have different B's, different stuff in the B column. And none of them are right or wrong. I mean, I guess some could be more factual or not. But some people might feel relief if they think they're going to get fired because they hate that job and they want unemployment and they wanted to quit, but they're just waiting to get fired. Some people might feel anger if they think they're going to get fired because how dare they? And they know that I'm such a good worker and this is not right. Some people might feel fear if somebody cuts them off of, oh my God, I'm going to get in a wreck. Everything is so dangerous. Like the world is not safe. Um, so depending on your beliefs, that will change what your emotions are. And what your emotions are lead to your behaviors, and it's all this cycle. So an ABC sheet just helps you outline those in a graphical kind of order, and then you really you catch it, check it, and then change it. So catch the thoughts, check the thoughts out. Is that rational? Does that make sense? What's the evidence for and against it? And then you change it if you need to. So yes, I might get fired, but if I do, I'll still be okay. I probably won't get fired. I'll probably get written up. They might get in a wreck, but if they do, it'll probably be a fender bender. And then once you change your beliefs, that will change your emotions. So some people do A, B, C, D, disputations of beliefs, and E, effective new beliefs. And so this is all, again, cognitive therapy, working with your thoughts, and then that will change your emotions, that will change your behavior. And it is effective. Your behavior is kind of the most direct tool. So sometimes you can still think like, I don't care what the evidence is for and against. I can't get this thought out of my head. I can't stop believing it. And so you can kind of just go around in circles if you're trying to just work with the thoughts. So really also work with the behaviors. And whether you think this person's an idiot or not, behave differently, back away and don't chase them down. Whether you think you're going to get fired or not, change your behavior and don't, quit because you think you're going to get fired. On page 230, it talks about, does the emotion fit the facts? If yes, then is it effective? If yes, then do it. If it doesn't fit the facts, then is it effective, even if it's not factual? And if it's not effective and it's not factual, then do opposite action or do cognitive behavioral therapy and change the thoughts, change the facts, not change the facts, change the thoughts, change the behaviors. That's on page 230. The following pages, for some reason, are like a weird going back and forth and just more intricately kind of describe fear, This is when you should feel it. This is what opposite action is. This is complete opposite action. Which is kind of helpful if you're in the middle of like disgust. You would look on page 234 and it will tell you exactly what to do with disgust. But we have already talked about all these things. Again, on page 242, it's just kind of an overview of all the emotions when they're justified, what opposite action is. All right. So that has brought us to ABC Please, which is what we'll get into next time. ABC Please is like the foundation of your house. Like if it ain't there, you're in trouble. Your house is gonna fall down. So ABC Please, super important. Super kind of standard and obvious. And so a lot of times we're like, oh yeah, of course I should eat my vegetables and drink water and get good sleep. I need to fix this relationship with my boss. Yeah, you can't do that until you've rested and you've slept and you've eaten and you are not drunk. So ABC Please is getting the most basic stuff done first, and then you go on to all the other stuff. You got to do that first. So we will get into that next time. Thank y'all for joining. Good to see you. Frozen yogurt. The cat says goodbye, and we will see you